Hi everyone. Today we're going to be looking at databases and the features of most databases. We are especially going to be looking at how to filter your searches so that you can make your researching more efficient and more effective. Now today we're going to be using the ProQuest database as an example, but the information and the features that ProQuest has tend to be available on most databases. So whichever database you're using, it's just a matter of figuring out that configuration of information. So things that you should notice about a database before you get started are all of the different features it has. A lot of students will just jump right in and type a letter into the search term or the search bar as though they're in Google, and then they'll be confused when they can't find anything. A couple of things to remember about databases is they use what's called Boolean searches. This means that if you type in, for instance, what causes obesity, you might get results or you might not. For ProQuest, because it's a very robust database, you're still going to get results because there are so many sources in that particular database. For some databases, however, if you type in a question like you can type into Google, what you're going to get is nothing. So it's really important that to search most efficiently, you're finding keywords or key terms that are part of your topic. Now, the other thing to pay attention to is that there's more than one way to search. Most databases now, when you pull them up, have a very central featured search bar, like this one does here. But what you'll notice is that there's also other ways to search. For ProQuest, what we see is that they have lots and lots and lots of different databases within this database. ProQuest is actually a clearinghouse. So one way you could search is to decide, for instance, that you don't want any ebooks, or maybe you don't want anything about traumatic stress, and to uncheck those databases. If you're having trouble finding information, or if your searches are coming back and they're just so big that you can't deal with the amount of information you're getting, one way is to kind of pay attention to what you're actually looking at. Most databases will also have a browse feature of some sort, where they have, for instance, topic guides or topic paths. So these can be really great if you don't know what you want to do research on, but for instance, you know you're interested in international trade, and then it kind of gives you pathways to search. If we go back to the home bar of ProQuest, what you'll see is that it has these subject areas that also can help you search more efficiently. For instance, if you're doing a paper for a history class, it might be a good idea to use the history search because it's going to limit your search to specific history databases that are within ProQuest. If you're having trouble finding too much, again, the more that you can narrow things down, the better. All databases will also have this advanced search feature. And advanced search is going to allow you to put together keywords. It's going to allow you to pre-filter everything. And it's going to allow you to get less results right off the bat. But we're not going to worry about an advanced search today. What we're going to look at is how to filter information once you get to the actual results. So as you see, as I'm typing in my search terms, the database is going to give me other specific ideas. And for instance, I was just thinking obesity in children, but it brought up this idea of causes of obesity in children. And I think that's even more specific, so that's what I want to go with. Now, here are our results. What you're going to notice is that there are 154,000 results here. There is not a single researcher in the history of the world who wants to sort through 154,000 results. And this is the point where a lot of college students who are just starting out in research get fed up and go somewhere else. But what I want to show you today is how you can use your own understanding of sources to narrow this down to something that's more manageable. So every database is going to have a way to filter sources. For ProQuest, those filters are over here. And the thing about filters is they work exactly the same as when you're going shopping. For instance, if you pull up a shoe store and you're looking for a pair of shoes, it often makes sense to click on your own size so that you can see only the results that you can actually purchase in your own size. So filters work exactly the same way. But for filters to work for academic research, you have to know what you're looking for. That often starts with source types. So for ProQuest, there are a ton of different source types that you can either exclude or include. For instance, if I just want to include newspapers, trade journals, and magazines, and I apply that filter, what you're going to see is my searches have automatically gone down to 73,000. Now, that's still way too much, but we've cut our number of searches in half. And the way that we've done that is we've looked at sources that, for instance, someone who isn't an active researcher in the field of obesity could read: newspapers, trade journals, magazines. These are something a general reader could understand. We can also make sure that we're getting only full text. That's going to cut us down to 65,000. We can make sure that we deal with publication date. For instance, if we're only interested in obesity research in the 1980s, we can pull the little slider up so that the research we get and the results we get are only in the last 20 years. We can make that even more narrow, though, if we want research in the last 10 years, in the last 20 years. Most research you're going to be doing for current event topics, you really only want the last 10 years, 5 to 10 years. Again, we're down to 33,000 results, which still seems like a lot, but if you think about the fact that we started with 153,000, it really helps us get to the point where we can start working with the information. Now, at this point, you can filter however you'd like. You can think about document type. You can think about subject, right? For instance, if what you're really interested in is studies about diabetes and obesity in children, and you filter it based on that, we're down even more to just 5,000 results. Now, if you take a look at the first 5 to 10 results, what you're going to notice after you filtered your results is that these are much more usable sources. So for instance, this one, obesity, causes of childhood obesity, but families and media play a key role. We see it's from News RX Science, and it's very recent. Study links sugar to conditions that lead to diabetes, effective obesity on parental perception. So as you can see, the first 10 to 20 resources now seem much more specific for our own interests. So what you should kind of understand about filtering sources is that you have to know what you're looking for. The number one problem that students run into is that they enter into a database and they don't know what they're looking for, and they're using general search bars like this one to do huge sources, and they're getting way too much information. One other feature that I want you to pay attention to in most databases is that most will have a way to sign in or to create an account. And I'd really recommend that you create a user account in these databases, because it can create a record of the searches you've done. It really helps to kind of keep track of your sources within a single class, but also, for instance, if you did a paper on obesity for your composition course, but then you were also doing something about obesity for, say, a sociology course, you can go back and find the resources that you've already used. Finally, all databases give you the citation information that you're going to need in order to do your works cited page and to cite your sources appropriately. You should always be sure that you keep a copy of your research. So every database will have some way to either download a PDF, to email the source to yourself, or to save it in some way. And it's really important you do that because that's going to save you time and energy later. The other thing that most databases will give you a way to do is a citation tool. So when you're using the citation tool, you want to make sure that you're actually using MLA citation, which is what we're doing for our course. And then the database will give you the citation formatting. So you can use this to copy and paste into your paper or to use as a start for copying and pasting and creating your works cited page. So I hope this has given you some hints and tips about how to get into a database and kind of start working with it. The number one thing I would recommend is to leave yourself plenty of time before you start researching to go in and just make sure you kind of know how the database works. And then once you know how it works, the most important thing about researching is really using those feature options to narrow down your results to something usable. If you have any questions, be sure that you post them.